Hi folks, just a really short quick one today. The XW's got a couple of oil leaks from the rocker cover gasket, and the fuel pump, the carburetor's leaking some fuel as well. So we're going to go through while we've got a little bit of time, re-kit the carby, do the rocker cover gasket seal, and possibly set the tappets. I think a couple of them might be running a little bit tight. Maybe the valves are starting to recess into the head a little bit. But so we thought while the rocker cover's off, we're going to put a old chrome one that I had laying around on an old 200 in the shed. Now, it was one of those cheap chrome ones that you used to be able to get from Redline, and obviously the chrome on them wasn't great when they were new, so it was fairly light surface rust over the whole thing with a couple of heavier pits just from sitting around for years in the shed. So we've given it a scuff back with grey Scotch-Brite and some WD-40. Got most of it off and clean, but it still looked a little bit on the shabby side. So we used a Duplicolor product called Metal Cast, and that's the yellow. Okay, it's not going to cover up the impurities and make it look great, but it looks better than surface rust. So we'll run through and show you how it looks, and hopefully tomorrow when we go to start doing the rocker cover gasket seals and the carby leak, we'll be able to see how it looks after it's had a few hours to dry. Thanks. Okay, let's get you standing here and have a quick look. Now this is 4 coats, 1 light dust coat and then 3 mediums over the top. Definitely a very translucent paint, or transparent paint, sorry. It's very light, so as you can see, any blemishes over good chrome, it'll be black. Over anything that's a bit sketchy, it's still going to look sketchy, but it looks better than the cheap, rusty, surface pitted tablet cover it was before. And kind of only too pretty. The rest of the car looks a bit ordinary in the engine bay, so it just looks clean. Alright, we'll see what that dries like in the morning and go from there. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we've got our rocker cover all cleaned up, painted, resealed, the gasket's all done. Dylan's gone through and put a carby kit through the old Stromberg to seal the fuel leaks up there. And we've got a fresh set of plugs, they're gapped. The ignition points have done next to no work, so they've been cleaned and gapped. And a new fuel filter, and there's a fresh air filter to go on as well, but that's not on there yet, obviously. So what we're going to do is we'll get you in and show you that rocker cover once it was all settled up. But first we're going to go through roughly what I do to dial it up as an initial setup. We've had the motor running for a little while to get it up to temp. We've roughed in the timing and the idle to just get it idling where we want it roughly. Now we're going to chuck a vacuum gauge on and see where we are with the basic settings on the carby. So now I know this is going to be really hard for you guys to see, but we've got at the engine warmed up idling. It's say 17 inches of mercury at idle, so it's not too bad, but if we can get it closer to 20, that'd be great. Now the idle screw is just roughly set where the thing would idle nice for us, and the timing is about where we want it, give or take. I think the balancer may have spun a little bit, so we're going to start by backing the idle down a little. Needle's fluctuating a little, but it's sitting between 17.5 and 18. So now, grab our mixture screw, which is out by memory about 1.5 turns. We'll try going out another half. So that's gotten worse considerably. Back in and let it stabilise for a bit. By half. Same thing. So we'll come back out. Back water. Where we set it by here, it's not really going to change by moving up or down. Now we will see what the timing is going to do. A little bit advanced. Made it work. Stabilize it up a little bit. Brought the idle up a little bit. There's a lot of slop in the linkages and stuff like that, so that's just general wear and tear. And the throttle plate on the carby does have a small vacuum leak, not going to help. But that seems to be running as consistent as it's been at around the 18 inches of mercury. Now the motor does have wear, does have a little bit of blow by, and there is some wear in the distributor shaft as well, so I don't think it's going to be a whole lot better, but what we're aiming for on a fairly stock motor with good compression and good mild cam, around the 18 or say 16 is fairly low, but up to about 20-22 inches of mercury is pretty high, so around that 20 inches of mercury if you can get it stable. And you shouldn't use vacuum to set your advance, but it will get you in close to where you want it. And this was a lot advanced from where it should have been because it was running on a little, and I thought the stale fuel was causing it to run on the thing, but it's not. It was actually over advanced a little bit. And it's got fresh fuel in there now, so that seems to have stabilised. Now we'll just double check the timing again to make sure it isn't too high after those couple of moves. Right, so what we've got is give or take 18, 19 inches of mercury on the vacuum gauge at idle, at temp. The timing, going by what's on the balancer, is sitting on about 10 degrees, which is where I wanted it advanced. It was off the timing pointer before, and the idle is fairly stable. That's obviously in park. It's a little bit high on the idle, but with a couple of vacuum leaks from the throttle plate and stuff like that, when we start to bring the idle down, it starts to chop and be a bit irregular. And I think the cam does have some wear in it as well, so definitely not helping. But we'll try popping it in park. And see what's going on. But and if I forgot to mention it before, we just had the ported vacuum disconnected to the Dizzy while you're adjusting all that. So. Right, so just running through what we were saying before, the vacuum gauge is hooked into manifold vacuum, not ported. So you always want to read your manifold vacuum, not your ported vacuum. We got the engine warmed up, everything was baseline set, and we've basically juggled between the idle speed screw and the idle mixture screw and the ignition timing to get the highest possible manifold vacuum out of the motor that we could with the wear that it's got, and the most stable without the needle flicking everywhere. Now you could see the needle, if the picture was a bit clearer, you could see the needle flicking. The motor does have a lot of Ks on it. The valves are a little bit suspect. The cam is a little bit worn. It's just general wear and tear. Still a decent running motor, but it's not fresh, obviously. That and the carby, I'd love to get a different carby for it that's better. We've had to repair a few threads on this one. I really should send it out and have the throttle plate rebushed so it doesn't suck vacuum from there. But there's lots of other things that we need to do on it. At the moment, it's quite drivable. So we've got about 18 and a half inches of mercury there at idle, which is good. It settles down nice when it's in gear, and it doesn't run on now when you stop it. So all the timing and adjustments were done with the ported vacuum disconnected off the advance on the Dizzy. And now we're going to lock that up, hook that all up, take it for a drive tomorrow when it's a bit sunnier and daylight, and make sure that the timing is in its happy spot so it's not going to ping and knock, and it should all be good. All right, so I'll just break from here for a second and we'll get you in and show you inside. All right, so running over what we've done with the tune on the side of this thing. So fresh set of plugs that were all gapped. We've gone through and cleaned the points and the ignition, and we've reset them and checked the dwell. So then after that, we roughed in the ignition timing roughly by eye, where it sounded good, or by ear, sorry. The carby got a gasket set through it to just clean up some leaks. It was running okay, just leaking a bit of fuel out of the bowl, which we found was from some damaged threads that weren't pulling up tight. So we've gone through and fixed them up. Haven't had a chance to get the carby base plate rebushed, which really does need it, but A, we don't have the time for that, and B, I really would like a little Windsor or a Cleveland in this, but it's one of those things, we'll see what we do. Oil leaks have been taken care of with the rocker cover gasket and the replacement rocker cover, and Dylan's gone through and given it an oil change for us, so there's fresh oil and a new filter on there. So now with the rocker cover, whether this is going to show up anything for you, that's the Duplicolor metal cast yellow, I think they call it, out of the can over the top of a chrome rocker cover. that we cleaned up with a bit of Quad-O steel wool and some WD-40 to take the flash and surface rust off of it. So yes, it is transparent and you will see the little blemishes in the paint, but it does look rather tidy compared to what it was before. So, and with the tune side of things, what we were doing was just chasing as much intake manifold vacuum as we could with the motor in the condition that it is. So it was fairly reasonable for the age of the motor, about 18 odd inches of mercury and fairly consistent. So happy with that. Pull it into gear, doesn't drop too much and it sits quite nice, and the idle is actually quite good now too. So just got to finish the air cleaner up, give it a clean and a bit of a coat of paint, fresh air filter in there, a couple of... Okay, back. So that phone ringing was security checking on us, so that cut into the camera recording, my bad. So yeah, so like I was saying, it just needs a couple little bits and pieces left on the tune on as far as the air filter and that, and some hoses for the breathers to go, and it's all done. So now that's been sitting, and hopefully... So it's a warm start, the start's nice, idle's good, so see what the cold start's like first thing in the morning, and if that's all good, we'll button it up and put the air filter on and go from there. And hopefully, with the weather being good and everything favourable, we'll be out at Kooralbyn this weekend to go over with the car show and the 8 mile drags. Thanks guys, see you soon. So that's it finally for this one guys, thanks for watching. Like I said, hopefully Dylan and I get out to Kooralbyn for the Kooralbyn 8 mile drags and car show they've got out there this Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I think it's the 24th, 5th and 6th. It's normally supposed to be a pretty good weekend. We're hopefully going to get out there for either Saturday or Sunday, see how we go. If you see us wandering around, pop in, say hello, and yeah, if your car's out there, let us have a look. Thanks guys, bye.